Welcome back to our journey of developing a completely new wave lineup. In the previous episode, we introduced John Sky to the team and started developing our new wave sails. In this episode, we're going to follow Patrick Helm into our board factory and explore how he goes about developing prototypes for waveboards.
Hi everyone, I'm Patrick from Patrick Windsurfing, and we are here at Cobra Factory in Thailand, where I'm gonna shape the new boards for the Wave project. So follow me. Main entry here. We got the permission to do a bit of filming here. Oops. Here we are. Reception. Here we have some sample parts, what Cobra does. They do everything, by the way. Cars, motorbikes, windsurfing, SUP, everything. Here we go into the dirtier area, a lot of dust. This is the customer area. There's a shaping room right here. This is where I spend most of my time.
Developing a board isn't about sitting down and drawing a new shape. Every prototype starts with people. Riders spending countless of hours on the water, learning what works, what doesn't, and where there's still room to improve. Those experiences become feedback, but feedback alone isn't enough. The real challenge is translating what a rider feels on the water into physical changes in a board shape. That process requires a close relationship between the people testing the equipment and the person building it. It's a continuous cycle of observation, discussion, experimentation, and refinement, one that ultimately turns ideas into prototypes.
So far with the project, we have, of course, we have our team riders who always ride our production boards, and we have John Sky, who works for us since a few months now. He's doing all the wave sail designing, and he also tested the production boards, gave me some feedback, what we want to change. So I will shape some prototypes, bring them to Australia, test them there, and then bring them back here. We scan them, start making production boards.
In the last episode, we introduced John Sky. While John joined the project to develop the wave sail range, his extensive experience in wave sailing also made him one of the key people in shaping the direction of the new boards.
So yeah, obviously I tested like a huge amount since I joined the team, but also like I sort of consider myself as like a bit of a sort of team manager in that department, taking all the information from all the riders, processing that and putting a filter on that, and trying to understand that and then pass that information on with more clarity to Patrick. And I feel like every rider has a kind of like a different way of explaining things, has a different style, has different things they're looking for. I'm a bit more connected to the team than Patrick is. So, I can sail with them, I can watch them sail, I can try their gear with that and with my knowledge and everything, try and like kind of condense that and give it to Patrick in a more useful way.
Every rider experiences a board differently. One talks about drive, another about carrying speed. Someone else just says the board feels more alive. The challenge for Patrick is understanding what these feelings actually mean and translating them into something tangible. A new outline, a different rocker, or even a completely new concept. This is where years of experience make all the difference.
Feedback of riders. That's a tough one because depends which rider, the weight, the style. Wave sailing is very, very personal. So racing, even you may not like the sail, you may not like the board, but if it's fast and controllable and you're actually doing good results, you don't care the feeling too much. Whereas waves, there's so much about feeling. But at least if I ride it myself and talk to a rider and he feels something, I at least understand why. That's why for me it's very important that to be active in all the disciplines. Of course it gets harder. I mean, getting older gets harder, but you can still maintain everything I've learned over the last 30 years. It's like a big memory card, and the feedback from riders I need just to convert in all that knowledge I have.
Over the last year, the Wave team had continued to grow. More riders joined the project, each bringing their own style, preferences and experience from different conditions all around the world.
One of the benefits of having like the team we have is that you kind of like explore maybe other directions. Like I find that, you know, I have my style and I know kind of what my style is, I know what I like. And so when I get on gear and I try it and I go like, oh, this is something I like or this is something I don't like. And whilst you can sort of test with an open mind, I feel like you're always drawn towards the things you sort of know a little bit. Sort of the more experience you get, kind of like it has a way of like sort of closing your mind and a little bit and like fitting you inside a box, because you go like, oh no, I tried that, I don't like that. And then you kind of already discard it. But then sometimes when you try that same thing, kind of in a different environment for a different thing, you suddenly realize that, oh, actually that, you know, whilst I didn't like it then, for this purpose, it actually works really, really well. So a good example of that is like Alessio was really looking for something quite different in Pozo from me. And I would say we have really contrasting styles. In general, he sails kind of like very light. He's, you know, he weighs a little bit less than me, a couple of kilos, but he's like often on like, you know, like 1/2 meter less sail and on a really small board. And I'm more like, kind of like more grunty, more, well, less efficient and tend to have everything bigger. I was actually testing some of his boards and I just like grabbed them on the beach, like how he had them set up. And then my first runs on them, I'm like, oh, this isn't really my style. But then I start to use them and I find like, oh wow, actually, you know, it does this really super onshore turn better than anything I've got. And so like, then I kind of like took that and tried to like sort of processed it in my head and was like, okay, why is it working like that? And then try and then adapt my boards to maybe do that better. And yeah, I think it's a really good way of stepping outside your box.
The more feedback the team collected, the clearer it became that there wasn't a single direction to pursue. Different riders were looking for different things, revealing opportunities that may never have emerged from one perspective alone. But identifying new directions is one thing. Turning those ideas into actual prototypes is another. With AI finding its way into almost every industry, couldn't it help us shape a windsurf board?
I'm looking for a little discussion in windsurfing.
Ah, windsurfing. That sounds interesting.
I'm looking to improve a waveboard, so the riders are requesting more grip in the top turn.
Sharper rails can provide more hold. Are there any particular design elements you're trying to optimize?
We're looking at the rider profile and the idea of implementing a winger.
Since you have specialized knowledge in windsurf board design, I'd be very interested to hear more about the specific technical details that maximize grip in the top turn. What specific design elements have you found to be most effective?
We don't really have the time to teach you. Patrick, please take over.
When you start shaping, then you feel the curve, you feel the concaves, if it fits or not. If you just design it on a computer, you just see lines and it's not the real size, you cannot really feel it, you cannot touch it. The foil boards, what's in the air, we do 3D shaping. But when it comes to boards which are on the water, I always feel like the result is always better when I shape by hand. And by the way, at my age, it's good to do some physical activities. So I love the hand shaping.
After collecting all the feedback and looking at the existing range, a few clear directions started to emerge.
I've tried pretty much all the boards. I tried them in a range of conditions, all the sizes. A good example I'd say is like the QTS. Like when I first got it, I was really, really happy with it. I was using it mostly in sort of small waves and onshore. And it was working really, really good. And I kind of like in my head, I thought, well, like this is working so good in these kind of like normal conditions. Like I really had my doubts when it got good conditions, you know? And then, you know, we managed to score some good sessions. Like for me, I can go across the Fuerteventura. It's a 2-hour boat trip. And there we got like completely different conditions. And we had some like really, really good, like down the line, like pretty epic conditions, some really big waves, but then also some like more normal conditions. Yeah, I remember one day specifically, it was the first day I'd really used the QTS in proper, what I'd say, like proper down the line. It was like, you know, like quite good size, like Largo high, like kind of fun and playful. And that was the first time I could really push it. And I sort of like started, I was like, okay, I feel the turn. And in the end, I could just push it so hard and like, I was getting such good turns.
Wait a minute. If the boards were already good in all conditions, what was there left to change?
Yeah, difficult one, because he liked them, and then I was like, so what do we do? What do we change?
And then it was really like sort of like not only testing the gear, but also like trying to find its limits and trying to find what it's good for. And that has involved, you know, I've taken boards from 2 or 3 years ago, you know, after speaking to Patrick about a few different things. He was like, oh, you know what you should try? You should try, see if you can get hold of an old, like the 3-year-old QT Wave that had like a mini winger in it. And so I managed to get one of those from like old stock and test that. And you know, with that, together with the other boards, you can kind of like go, okay, well, I really like what that board does. I really like what this board does. Let's try and like combine them to create something, you know, in the direction we want to go.
So what we're working on right now to make them more specific. So let's say have a proper sideshow board, have a proper global board, so like an all-wave board, have a proper free wave board, and so on. So not, let's say, one board which kind of does it all. So on that board, for example, the global wave board, he asked for more grip. So we already have quite a decent double concave. So to do that even deeper, it's gonna get complicated with the narrow tail. The water will flow against the rail, so I need to give more rocker, but then you lose planing. So I'm trying to find a way how can we increase grip in the turn and still keeping, let's say, the same bottom shape. So this is my goal for that board. That's why let's try, never know.
Remember what John discovered while testing the old QT Wave? Part of that feeling came from one small detail, the winger.
As you can see, this is a winger which is not just reduced in outline, but also reduced in thickness of the rail. The idea is when you're carving, so when you're in the water flows up the rail anyway. It follows the surface, so the water sucks up a bit the rail. And then when it goes here, it kind of sucks it back down, and at the very back here, I hope that we can get kind of like a fin effect, so we get some extra grip in the turn. Of course, to know the exact position, if it should be here or there or there or here, it's difficult to really estimate. So what I'll do, I fill this all back up, and then I can do a little winger cut without the reduction in thickness on the rail. Test it, then I can do the reduction of the rail. Then I can go further forward, do another winger step full, send the winger step down to thinner, go further forward until I'm back to the normal surface of the board. And like this really finds the perfect position and thickness. I mean, if it works at all. Whatever comes out in production, it's what we have found, it is the best.
As the prototypes continued to evolve, several distinct directions began to emerge. One concept pushed further toward dedicated down-the-line wave riding. Another focused on creating a more versatile free-wave board, capable of performing across a wider range of conditions. Each shape represented a different interpretation of the feedback collected from our riders.
At the moment, I'm making 3 different wave boards for testing. One is a sideshow wave board, so down-the-line wave board. And then the global wave board, which does a bit of everything, but let's say rather a bit side-on, so global conditions, a bit smaller waves, jumping. And then one more for the free wave. Yeah, I look forward to test those boards.
By building the prototype boards directly at Cobra, Patrick could ensure they were produced using the same construction methods and materials as the final production boards. This way they would be exactly identical to the boards that would eventually end up in production.
For me, it's really good to actually work with those guys and make the boards here in the factory where we produce, because if I make a custom board somewhere in Australia, everything with my fibers, with my foam, with my resin, the final production board will probably not be the same.
For Patrick, building the prototypes at Cobra was the closest he could get to the final product. The materials, the construction, the people building them, everything was as real as possible. But even a perfectly built prototype is still only a theory. The shape might make sense in theory. The concept might look good on paper. But until different riders take it into different conditions, nobody really knows what will survive. Months of feedback, shaping and refinement had brought the project to this point. The prototypes were ready. Now it was time to take them to Australia and find out what they could really do.